Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And if you don't know me, my name is Ryan, and I am the owner of Performabuilt Transmissions. We are one of the, if not the best, 4-speed overdrive transmission shop in the entire world at the moment, with the fastest 4L60E in the quarter and the eighth mile at 780 in the quarter, and in the fours in the eighth, with a hell of a 60-foot and everything else, thanks to my buddy Matthew Lance, who currently owns that record in his Camaro. So big shout out to F Body Empire. I help sponsor. I love the group and everybody in it. Little shout out to No Chill Chad too, and Jacob Dietz at Pro Charger. A little bit about me and all that. I've worked with a lot of tuners. I've worked with Haltech, and I have about 20 years experience in general automotive, from tuning to transmissions to engines. Everything but rear ends. I don't really like those. And you might be wondering why we're redoing this video today. So I had a reach out from a good customer of mine, because I do listen to you guys. And he's an older gentleman, didn't want to be named, but bless him. I don't really rewatch these videos except for editing, which displays a little differently on my PC. I don't actually watch them on YouTube. When I did watch it, he pointed it out. It was kind of hard to see, and the video quality wasn't great. And, you know, I've taken a whole year trying to figure this out, being a little more savvy with the streaming and the editing. Streaming my video games at night has really helped me understand it all, so I've gotten better at it. Recently, I've been working with Hawkeye Community College as well, teaching the students there through my YouTube, because you guys know, look at all the marketplace builds. Look at all the garbage transmission build. Everybody has the worst perception of this industry. And honestly, we're just here to set it right. And we're proving it time and time again. So not only am I going to shorten some of these videos up for educational purposes, I'm going to work on my swearing. I'm going to work on the quality. And we're just going to do this thing and really get the world right. So we're going to talk about the Holley today, and I'm going to give you guys like a brief overview of it, because we know Holley's tech support is just absolute trash. They can do better. If you're listening, Holley, do better. Forgive my voice. I've been very sick for like 2 weeks, but I'm good enough to do this thing today. So let's talk about the Holley. Something let alone transmissions that we aren't grasping yet. Let's not lie, the world is still struggling here. Tuning anymore is the most essential part of it. And transmissions honestly are not a bolt-on anymore. They used to be. My instructions have changed over the years, and that has to happen. Automotive technology changes with the times, and it changes very fast, much like computers. So we really do need to get a handle on this. It is the other half of the problem. I've had a few customers recently that just can't grasp that, and they're going to be stuck behind looking at taillights in old technology that just isn't fast anymore. You guys are going to be forced to move on eventually, so you might as well embrace it and learn it. All right, we're going to flip on over. And today we are using Terminator version 3, Terminator X version 3. There is 1, 2, and 3. Just use the software that your hardware came with. Version 3 isn't any better than version 1. From my understanding, version 3 has the 6L80, 6L90 stuff, and you know, we're just going to focus on the 4Ls today. So for ease of access, your most recent file is going to be here. There is a drop down of all the stuff you've done recently, but today we're starting over. So you're going to click open global file, and this is the only folder you should have, base calibration. And this little window pops up. Now, this is probably the most important message of the video, because I've had a couple guys give me grief this year. They just really entitled, and use the calibrations in the base cal folder as a starting point and for a guideline. Carefully go over the calibration and make changes to match the intended application. Blah, 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 blah. Now, Holley knows what they're doing. They're not a bunch of idiots. What this basically says in plain English is what I've been iterating for a very long time, and I'll give you guys a great example. There's no such thing as a base tune that you are allowed to drive on for an automatic transmission. Now let me ask you this. Since we have so many experts that have built motors their whole life in the comment sections and on Facebook, would you guys build a expensive engine, put 1,000-some cc injectors, big old S480 turbo, BTR this, and dual fuel pumps that, and then run that on a factory tune 200 miles down the road, expecting good results? Now, if you answered yes, I would do that. I don't really know what to say to you, but I think you should say that on the internet and see what you get. If you said no, there's hope. You have some common sense. So a transmission essentially operates off of one thing, and it's line pressure. And there's a couple other variances like shift points and stuff, but when you change how the RPM in an engine works, you are changing how the transmission and torque converter are going to respond. Use your common sense, guys. We need to tune things. We need to spend the $500 to either have a professional or the time it takes to learn how to do this and set up our beautiful machine correctly, because we are all playing engineer. This is not a game to some of us. To most people, it's a hobby. To other of us, it ain't no game. So things cost money. Repairs cost money. Don't be a statistic. You must click OK to proceed. Therefore, you're saying, yes, I understand. We're going to do GM, even though Holley has an assortment of all kinds of different builds they do, and then what the software can run. We're going to go in LS-based, and I am really tired of talking about the 4L60, even though I have many videos planned for it. I did the last Holley video on the 60, so today we're going to do the 4L80. And the same principle applies. Just because I'm doing a 4L80 today doesn't mean all this stuff is the same exact thing for a 4L60. Like how you're going to set line pressure, how you're actually going to do everything. This is an overview of the Holley. This isn't how to tune your single turbo Silverado. It's not like that. Just guideline. Because Holley, like I said, isn't very helpful. Now, these are your ICFs. And you're going to start out with a few basic ones like spark and fueling and this and that. Your transmission one's going to have this little shifter. And if you don't have it, which in some files it isn't already there, you're going to go into Toolbox. You're going to add individual configuration, and you're going to go down here to transmission. And we're going to pick AT transmission, which just stands for automatic transmission. I normally would double click that, but I already have it here, so I don't want to add another. But what we are going to add is the drive-by-wire, and we're going to do default drive-by-wire, and then a little gas pedal icon will display. That's essentially how you work this top bar. Why a drive-by-wire is going to be significant in the video, I will get into later, but it directly coincides with your throttle position in the new body style vehicles, and that will coincide in the line pressure. One thing I just forgot about, I need to talk about this. Speaking of line pressure, one thing you guys should think about before you even get tuning is Holley or Fuel Tech or Hall Tech, but mostly this is Holley, X-Max, Dominator X. They have a lot of extras, namely inputs, outputs, CAN buses, all these individual things that support whatever you desire for your application. For most guys, a lot of these options are not going to matter, and don't waste your money on them unless you're really competitive or hate money like I do. For the most critical one, I think everyone should get, no matter what build you have, is a pressure sensor or pressure transducer. Why this is important is these things can detect at the source a problem. And line pressure in a transmission is just as important as the air-fuel ratio in your engine. Now, since we all understand engines, this would really coincide with your fueling. So why having a pressure transducer in your fueling side, if your air-fuel ratio gets messed up, having one of these would detect the problem at the source before it even hits that air-fuel ratio gauge. So you have time before that loss travels through the line, through the fuel rail, through the injectors, into the combustion chamber. All these things have to happen before there's actually a problem. If you can monitor it at the source, you have a chance to save a lot of money and a lot of aggravation and keep yourself going at your event. Ask your engine builder about that. One, he'll be like, where did you learn that? Like, absolutely. Hell yeah, brother. Let's put one in. On the transmission side, this is the only thing I need you to have. And it's the biggest thing people neglect. So for example, like a drag and drive. Let's say you have an F-body Camaro, and we bought a pressure sensor. We plug it into the case. Every GM transmission has a little 1/4-inch MPT port that pulls directly from the pump. The source of the pressure. Pressure is what makes your transmission work. And also, pressure is determined through all the data that's happening around the transmission as well. So, we're doing a run. We're lining up and tree lights, and we got a good 1-2 shift and not so great of a 2-3 shift. You know that all common problem. So on the 1-2 shift, we were seeing 200 PSI at wide open throttle. Everything's good. That's how it's supposed to work. That's what my builder said. But on the 2-3 shift, I only saw 140 on my gauge. That's not good. Now, chances are we finished the run. No damage was really done yet, Transmissions can take a little bit of abuse, but not as much as an engine. So we get back to our pit or our tent or whatever have you, and we're like, hey, man, I got a problem. I was only seeing 140 on that 2-3. If we know a little bit about how transmissions works, because we watched Ryan's Performabuilt transmission YouTube videos and learned so much, we'd be like, okay, well, let's check the valve body. Maybe something's wrong. That's the easiest thing to do. So we pull the pan, check the valve body, everything checks out. Not a whole lot we can do with the track right now. Filter looks good. There wasn't a partially clogged filter. Okay, at this point, it's got to be a leaking piston in the 3rd circuit of the drum. Damn. Well, we still have a chance. We can tear down that transmission before there's any damage, probably reuse the same clutch pack if you're that much in a pinch, and either replace the lip seal for the torn piston that blew under pressure, or replace the clutch pack that either delaminated or what have you, and keep going. We can find the problem based on pressure. We can almost pinpoint it. It's one of the biggest diagnostic tools I use when a customer is having an issue or just doesn't know what they're doing, and it turns out they didn't plug in their output speed sensor or some dumb thing like that. On a drag and drive, for example, when I went on my first one a couple years ago, I ran into a lot of guys that never bothered to service their unit prior to the event. And that, no flack on that. I get it. Everybody's excited. I wasn't thinking about shit clearly out there. But you can see a partially clogged filter with a pressure gauge. If you made a run at wide open throttle at 200 pounds, and then the next run you're only running 180, your filter might be stopping up. We can change that. We can see it on the gauge. I hope you guys see where I'm going with this. So spend the $200. You will need something for a Performabuilt build. You will need something somewhere in the 0 to 300 PSI range. For a stock transmission, 0 to 200. For a competitor, somebody else that builds performance transmissions, go ask them. I don't pay attention to my competitors. I really don't care about them. They don't exist to me. So we all try to just mind our own business and do what we do. Now back into the Holley. We are going to go back into transmission ICF. And this is your overall setup screen. This is more or less a calculator, and this part's going to set your axis in the program so you can actually do what you got to do. And today we're doing the 80. They do have tap shift and stuff like that, but again, those are add-ons for the Holley. These are misconstrued as to setting your RPMs for the car. That's not true. These set the axis in the program. They don't do shit in your car. So with a 4L80, I really recommend, it's very unsafe to go over 7,000 RPM with an 80. It's made of cast iron. Cast iron does not hold centrifugal forces or RPM very well. And there's a good chance if you neutral an 80 or go too many RPMs, you might end up killing yourself, and that's not a joke. A 4L60 is made of aluminum, metallurgy. It's very well known it can take much more RPM. I have guys turning 9,000 RPM. Granted, I recommend running a shield or a blanket if you are racing, no matter what RPM you are doing, because shit can happen. I like to make jokes, but I also like to be realistic. It just keeps it light, keeps it fresh. But that one's not something to joke about. I've seen direct drums out of 80s fly through floorboards and bounce around in cabs and really, really do some damage. So, gear ratio for an 80. Most of you watching this video, the average guys who I'm making this for, you're going to just leave this alone. Stock, which is going to be 248, 148, 1, and 75. If you hate money like I do, and you feel like dropping, $4 or $5 grand on different drums that are aluminum for the 80, so you can do stuff like that, then you will go into custom and then follow the manufacturer's, ratio spec for that part your builder installed or you installed. Next, we have speed calculation. We have, that must be checked. Speedometer output enable. And it's going to be 4,000 pp mile, which stands for pulses per mile. The 4L60 and 4L80 both work off this number. Do not change it. You will adversely affect it, most likely in a negative way if you do. So that's more or less just setting up the program. This stuff does matter. This will set your shift points, or your base shift points. You have your tire diameter, your rear gear ratio, and this big old button right here. So today in my F-body, we have managed to sandwich a 4L80 in there because we don't believe in the 4L60 still. And we're going to rock a 29-inch tire with a 410 gear because we all know the 4L80 is a dog and really kills your 0 to 30 foot if you're running like, a 340 or 273 or something like that. And you'll notice, even though I plug these numbers in like that, it didn't change to my right. It still says 28, 373, and 104. What we got to do is hit apply that scaling, and then you'll see them change. That's the only time those changes will take effect. And if you guys need help understanding this, here's another helpful tip, probably another big one next to no bass tunes. Do not drive on bass tunes, but F1 is the friend for Holley. Holley has crappy tech support, but boy oh boy, whoever programmed this in and wrote this needs a raise. They really do. I want them to come work for me. If you are confused and my video is not covering something, press F1 at any point in the program. It will bring up everything you need to know. It tells you speed calculation. Measure and enter the real tire diameter. Enter the rear axle ratio. Let's see here. And it just explains, table configuration. Various transmission calibration tables can be mapped through throttle position or manifold air pressure. Naturally aspirated engines typically use throttle position. Boosted engines use map. As engines generate boost under non-watt TPS conditions, which require higher line pressure. This is a very well-written document that I encourage everybody to either print off or keep on hand, because man, I've learned more through just helping people figure out their own stuff than anything in my shop. So if you're confused, F1. Just what we said. A lot of this is irrelevant. You would leave a lot of it alone, but line pressure scaling, you have two choices, TPS or MAP. TPSs, unless you're really, really, really good at tuning and you know exactly what you're doing, which I know everybody on Facebook does, if you're boosted, you're going to pick MAP. It's a much better scenario. And the reason is, we'll get into a throttle blade angle table later. If your throttle blade angle, very often is fixed, especially at watt, or even at part throttle, just because your throttle blade angle is fixed doesn't mean you can't still build boost. And if line pressure, which the transmission relies on, doesn't come up with boost, it's going to burn a clutch pack because there's not enough line pressure to account for that additional boost, and it's only reading this much of the throttle blade. We'll get into that a little bit later, but it's extremely important and not a well-known fact. You guys keep that in mind. But today, it's an example day. We don't have a lot of power. We just want a big tire and a 4L80 because that's what everybody has on the internet. Essentially, that's the setup. So now we're getting ready to tune. And this is your shift parameter, shift points, as many people like to call it. And right now we're in the part throttle table. And these are kind of going to be what they are. This is the only table that you don't really have to mess with that is okay to go on a short little drive down the road. Not 200 freaking miles. Down the road a little bit, just to get a feel for what the vehicle's doing, to get a data log, to make your adjustments. It's adjusting things with a transmission and tuning. I hear it far too often. Turn back the pressure to dial down the shift feeling. No, it's not about feeling. This is an exact science like air-fuel ratio. Big thing with that was the old 700 R4s and TV cable. People were partially thinking it would adjust shift points, and really you're just dialing back pressure and breaking your own transmission. But hey, give the boomers credit. They didn't have YouTube, and they figured this out on their own by blowing it up. That's where the millennial generation falls short. I'm really disappointed in my generation. Now, this is your 1, 2, 2, 3, and 3, 4. Okay? If you don't know what any of this is, again, F1. It will take you, if you press that key, it will take you directly to where you're at, that page. It's just incredible. So leave this alone for now. Do your initial test drive and see where it's at. Do a data log. And be scientific about it. If you need to change shift points, I kind of highly recommend, you are allowed to do this, but you can drag and drop lines, right? I don't really recommend you do that because if you pay attention, here's this. If you pay attention, I'm going to try to get 107. It's kind of hard to do, and I have a hell of a gaming setup that's pretty on point. So if anything, if you got to change something, you can plug in other numbers from a more exact calculator, like Blue Cat tuning software. It's a free program available online. You can copy and paste those numbers directly into the Holley, or you can just highlight a few cells and make it your own. So I was happy with, I think it was 103 or something like that. I don't remember. Anyway, we're going to leave that alone. That's part throttle. We're going to go into wide open shift points. That's the part where people confuse the other RPM table for the axes. Now, this is something I do need to teach everybody. This is why it's kind of, I don't know. I need to talk about this because I don't think many transmission builders really talk about how to actually do things. Your 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4. They will typically be set all the same. Now, let's say we're fresh out the sloppy mechanics group and we think our junkyard LS and our F-body can turn 7,400 RPM. That's a pretty safe number. And normally, most people would put in these numbers. And then what happens, guys? I'm going to give you a second to take a guess. 1, 2, 3. keep in mind, this is the most our engine can do. Okay. Now, I went on a run just now with my 7400 programmed in, and all it did was bang off the limiter. It can't make the shift. And I called my builder bitching about it, saying he built it wrong. Wrong thing to do. What you need to keep in mind, what your builder will explain to you, is an electronic signal is very instant. It's right now. Hydraulics are fluid. It takes a millisecond or two. Now, the good example I can give you, the river up here in Berwick can't move that body of water all the way down to Bloomsburg just like that. It takes time. Even though hydraulic fluid is under pressure, and a lot of it, it's not as instant as electronics. So the rule of thumb here is if you want your 1-2 shift, to actually shift at 7,400 RPM like a bad tuner, you're actually going to program it to send the command at 7,200 RPM. Ooh, that would be one hell of an engine, 74,200. Hell yeah, brother. What this will do is it will send the signal to make the shift, but it gives that fluid a couple hundred RPM to actually get there by the commands given. Everything meets in the middle, and bam, you have a perfect shift. That's how this stuff works. Chances are your 1-2 will be much lower or different than your 2-3 sometimes. And a good tuner will not absolutely max your freaking motor out. A good tuner is a guy that leaves a little wiggle room so that way they can bang your engine off the rev limiter on the dyno all day long. There's a lot of guys out there that just got a laptop thinking they got to max effort and squeeze every little RPM every mile an hour out of these things. And it's just, that's a bad tuner. There's also a lot of tuners that make a lot of things your problem. A good tuner is somebody who has probably been a mechanic of some sort for most of their lives and actually understands every single thing about a car over the technology presented over the years. Tuning is 99% of mechanical. I know that doesn't make sense to some of you, but it's very little laptop. Because if something's not responding to what you're telling it to do, you've got to go in and make sure that it's actually working right and being able to find the problem quickly and efficiently without blowing up your customer's car. I see it far too often, and that's why I'd like to say if anybody does, it's okay to admit and nobody's going to think down on you if you don't know what you're doing and you just want to succeed. If you are buying a product from me and don't have a tuner or don't trust somebody or don't know, and it's too common, we will give you a tuner. I have about 10 remote tuners across the country. Most of them offer remote tuning. I would be more than happy to provide you their phone number and set you up with them. And they have tuned hundreds of thousands of my transmissions. They've tuned other people's transmissions. These people know what they're doing. So if you don't know something, there's no shame in it. If you're nervous, there's no shame in it. Let's get it right together, guys. Don't let somebody blow up your car because they want to absolutely squeeze every little bit out of it. And again, just going back to that F1 key, shift parameters. Let's go into line pressure. Probably the most important subject in the transmission industry. And this is why running a bass tune while you're trying to drive it is bad. This is the biggest reason. On top of hitting limiter and outrunning shift points, that just scars clutch pack. It jackhammers the clutch, and clutches don't like that. It's just paper, Line pressure is backwards in Holley. I know we were born and raised to read a graph going upward. Holley's a little bit different. It does both, but namely, the throttle position is still 0 to 100, as it should be. It goes across. But the pressure 0 is 100, right? This is actually 0. And 0 is 100 and 100 is 0. So this is 100 in Holley, and this is 0 in Holley. So this axis is completely backwards with how they've wrote this software. I am not allowed to call Holley, but I encourage somebody to, and just email me why they did that. I'd love to know the answer. And you have line pressure through first gear, second gear. You have different line pressure tables for every gear. I would not piss with that at all unless you are like supercharged or something where it may variance a little bit. Most applications, turbocharge, NA, all that, you are going to not go through this and you are going to pick one line for all gears. I can't stress that enough. The other thing too is, again, you're more than welcome to drag and drop, right? But I highly discourage that. I'd rather everybody just use the numbers. So we're going to spend a while on this right now, and going back to F1, it does have a little bit of an explanation for you guys. You know, there's temp versus line, load versus line. It gives a general overview, but Holley is not a transmission builder. They don't really know what's going on in there. So much like your air-fuel ratio, line pressure is the air-fuel ratio and the most important thing to your transmission. It's all it needs. It is how much pressure holds the clutch pack. If you don't have the pressure to meet where the power is, your clutch is going to slip, ruined, destroyed, almost instantly. You don't have very many shots with the transmission because, like I said, graphite clutches, red clutches, it blows people's mind that I tell them I can build you a 1,000 horsepower unit with a $1 paper clutch. A clutch is a clutch in a transmission. It doesn't really matter too much. Other clutches withstand heat a little bit better, but the variance is so small, it doesn't matter. What Holley starts out at is something a little more aggressive than what you would see in a stock file. Now, granted, when I say little, I mean a little more aggressive, not enough to matter. And it's only because if you've ever tuned a stock computer successfully, and if you are really good, stock computers are great. They can be a lot smoother because you have more exact decimal points and you can further dial in, you know, if you are a true experienced tuner. This is simplistic. It gets the job done. It's easier to understand. So Holley's going to start you off at about a 34% duty cycle. 30 to 34 is fine. We're at 0% throttle. And then it's going to gradually walk itself this way, all the way down to what is technically 100 as you increase your throttle. Now, this graph is good as it is for a stock car or the old guy that just wants to restore his childhood dream and take his wife out on the boardwalk or something like that. He's never going to go wide open throttle. He might do a burnout to impress Barb, but that's it. None of you guys watching this are going to use this shit. And if you do, you're going to have a bad time. Most of you guys run a single turbo, so we'll use that as an example. I personally like to, most anything with the turbo, I like to start at 30%, and then I might walk it down to like 28, 26, 24, 20, not 243. Right about, I don't know how that happened. My mic's kind of in the way of my keyboard. I actually got to do this to find the numbers. I like to make, you know, the very light throttle area, the part throttle area of the turbo, a little more aggressive because, one, we don't want to hit the 1-2 shift hard on any transmission. It's too stressful. There's not enough rolling speed, and it's just going to break shit. And that's where a lot of builders you'll hear, And I used to say it too, and I still do. Do not just jack line pressure, because a lot of tuners, this has gotten better in the years, a lot of tuners will just max you out 100% across the board. They will just max pressure because that's how they think it's good. I've seen that in HP, I've seen that in Holley, Field, you name it, and it never results in a good thing. So this is where it's really important to figure out and know your engine. Find out, much like you need to do with stall speed, and figure out where your torque's starting to come into your power band and what your cam's actually doing as well. Line pressure is the same thing. It's really the same principles as stall speed. You need to figure out the engine you built, where that thing is starting to make its torque into that power band, which is usually, 25, 22, 2500, somewhere in there. Typically, as an example, for our F-body, what I see is somewhere around 27 to 33% throttle is where, 20 to 33, I guess, is where the most power bands kick in. So 27, 33%, that's where our power band's going to come in, and our F-body with our 4L80, etc. Our boost is going to come in hard with our turbo, and all we want is the clutch pack to hold. Again, this isn't about feeling. So once boost comes in, and we'll say it comes in at the 33% mark. So once boost comes in, we are going to start very aggressively moving line pressure to, or increasing line pressure to our clutch packs to meet with the boost. So if you're building boost and you don't have the line pressure to back it up, quite simply, you're going to burn a clutch pack. It's just how it works. It's not about feeling. It's not about controlling how hard it shifts or drivability. That is a transmission builder's job. If you're not happy with how a transmission shifts, you need to talk to your builder. Don't go into tuning out hard parts. You just can't do it. So our boost is coming in, and it's coming in very aggressively. And once boost comes in, and we're at full boost at about 47% throttle, it needs to stay in the clutch pack. You'll see a lot of graphs like this for drag racing because they have a purpose. They're doing a run, they're going down the strip. Once they hit a certain, honestly, it'll probably be a little bit sooner before that. I actually like to make that a little more aggressive. You'll see a lot of drag strip tunes similar to this right here, this dark blue line, because once we hit full boost, we need that clutch pack to hold, and we're not going to let our foot out of it, and that clutch pack can't be let go. So line pressure, quite simply, for our single turbo F body is going to be maxed out when we hit boost and full boost. Once we start building boost, it's going to drop. I don't know how to word this right. This is so hard, Holley. Why did you do this to me? Okay, let me see. I think you all understand what I mean, but you can understand my frustration as well. I'm sure you guys are frustrated because I'm trying to tell you something's going up when it's clearly going down, but in reality, it's going up. So we're increasing line pressure very drastically as our boost comes in, as we're putting more foot to it so we can hold the clutch pack. It's not a very hard thing to do. Again, if you aren't experienced, please see a professional or talk to us and we will point you to a professional. Temp versus line pressure, wouldn't be too worried about it. It's just, oil gets thinner, it's going to increase a little pressure, and it's going to vary that by temperature. But I highly recommend the average guy not mess with that. TCC parameters, you guys aren't going to touch this much except for minimum RPM to disable, and always unlock TCC during an upshift and a downshift unless your builder tells you otherwise. With a Performabuilt unit, if you do this, you are going to blow my unit up and fry your converter and everything else. It's going to be rough. Lockup isn't what a lot of people think it is. It's for efficiency. It's for, on a track, it's for gaining a little mile an hour at the very top of third if you can't quite hit fourth. Locking something up doesn't mean it's going to be locked to your motor and you're going to gain, a shitload of torque or anything like that. That's actually going to smoke your lockup clutch. So, and if you don't unlock it during a shift, you are putting a lot of stress on that little 10-inch clutch in that converter, or 3 10-inch clutches in that converter. They're not meant for that. They're meant as an assist for fuel economy or a little mile an hour at the end of the track. Again, the same rules apply here as they did for RPMs. Set it a little earlier. Give it some time. And we go into torque management. It's not something I personally really mess with my product. Performabuilt doesn't really need torque management. It's not a bad idea if you do, but not required. Some builders do require it. I don't. And then you have your inputs and outputs, which, we're obviously not plugged into a car, but it'll tell you if things are defined, not defined, all that. Now, one of the things I wanted to touch on, going back to line pressure here, the reason why throttle body drive-by-wire stuff has to be considered in the TPS versus MAP settings of the unit is, number one, for startup, for setup, you guys can't just put in a drive-by-wire unit in your car. It has to match each other, so the pedal versus the throttle body part numbers should coincide with each other per the manufacturer. On top of that, in Holley, you can't just put your buddy's pedal number in your car. That has to be right. That has to match what you got. It has to be the right part number, or it's going to be bad. It won't work. Where is it? This is the table that I was talking about that you may need to change, especially if you have a gigantic camshaft that struggles to idle. And if that's the case, and you change this and the position of the throttle blade, and you've set your line pressure scaling to the throttle position, well, then this needs to be changed now. That's why I say a lot of turbo vehicles need to go off a map. Map is very different than throttle position. It just works better with a turbocharged vehicle. And there's a nice little explanation. Again, there's videos on that as well. But I highly suggest, again, we'll move on. Boost, map, small NA, TPS, big NA, map. Because you're going to be either building boost with the throttle blade fixed, or your big cam needs the throttle blade angle changed, and you really got to get intricate with it if you want TPS to work. The last thing I kind of want to go over is a pin map, which I just clicked on it, but it's gone. We'll drag that up here. This is something to always check during, in the middle, at the end, and absolutely when you're all done and you think it's all right. If you have something displayed up here, it needs to be addressed. Okay? All these should be good to go. They're all green. We're all good. This map is so important, and I've seen a lot of tunes where, the connector might be shit, there might be dirt in it, something isn't plugged in. People forget things. There's a lot of parts to a car, guys. So keep in mind, don't neglect the pin map. Now, this is, again, showing you around the Holley. That is not how to tune every single Performabuilt. That is not how to tune any of my competitors. That is not how to tune a stock transmission. Do not copy this. Do not upload it. because you have a single turbo 4L80F body. Find the power band, find the stall speed, do the homework. It's a very simple program. And when in doubt, let's go back to drive-by-wire. Let's go pedal versus throttle. When in doubt, use that F1 key. This is so well written. Print it off, hang it in your garage. And I definitely don't want to save that. Now, let's look at, now that you guys walk through, we can have some fun. And I'm going to show you guys some tunes in my mostly shitty Holley tune folder. Let's do, this is not a shitty tune, but just as an example, this is a really good friend of mine. His name's Court. He's a hell of a racer. He's got about 1,500 horsepower, and he's running my 4L60E Black Edition. Okay. Court is a very fast guy, and he's got a serious build. Most of you guys do not have a turbo this big or what he's doing, but take a look at his line pressure graph for the quarter mile. It's very aggressive. Okay. If you got some serious shit, you're going to have a much more aggressive line pressure graph on drag racing than you will the street. If your build's getting more and more serious, we need more line pressure. His shift parameters. This is more or less a second gear start. It's something, he's a customer, like we like to try new things and everything, but that's the second gear start for his vehicle. It will be different for yours. Again, do not copy this. I'm just showing these as an example. But here we have the 2.3 and the 3.4. And he's obviously not going to hit fourth. So this is what I mean by, you know, just cut it off right there so it can't do it. And again, my units, just to show you, Court's got 1,500 wheel with my Performabuilt Black Edition. He's not messing with torque management or anything like that. So our stuff, it's tough. It can take it. Use the F1 key, guys. Do your homework. And quite simply, happy tuning. Like, take your time with this. Don't be in a rush to build your car. I personally, I like building cars more than I do racing them. It's just me. So don't neglect the time in the garage for a bad time out on the track. I know I go a little bit longer sometimes. I like to ramble. I like to talk with you guys and hang out. I love cars. I love what I do, and I appreciate everybody that is supporting us at Performabuilt, supporting me, and supporting this channel. I'm really grateful. I never thought I would be used as a kind of a tool per se to help teach young adults about a very unknown subject in the automotive world, but I'm more than honored to do that. To all the young adults at Hawkeye, message from me to you, keep wrenching. We need you. We need your generation. And I love the fact that you guys are taking it seriously and actually building a serious car. Saw the two-step video. If I had to guess, I'm guessing 682. That's my number at the wheel. Give me a prize or something. Send me a hoodie if I'm right. But I wish you guys nothing for the best. And your instructor's great. Always listen to him. And just keep going, guys. Teach your peers. To all the others out there that support this channel, support our company, thank you so much. We wouldn't be here without you. I learn from you guys. I just hope the car industry someday takes this information I'm putting out, puts it to use, turns it around, because I haven't been real impressed lately with the internet. And it's all up to you, each individual person, to help this industry grow, especially those students. Each and every one of you is gonna be great someday if you aren't already, and is gonna add so much to this. So for you guys at home that are a little nervous, bring the car scene back, get around the people, ask the questions, learn, blow shit up, spend the money, because it's going to happen. And by all means, never stop wrenching, never stop tuning, and never stop breaking it, because that's how it's been since the industry began. So keep an eye out. I got some new parts and some new videos, and hopefully this was zoomed in, better quality, and everything you asked for. If anybody has a suggestion, and by all means I welcome suggestions, drop me a line. Drop me a message on Facebook, an email, a text message. Most of you have my number. I need your suggestions. I need your input. That's what helps me grow, and sometimes I have the information that you seek, but I need to know what you're looking for. So, happy Thanksgiving, guys. Keep an eye out for all the stuff 2026 is going to bring. And I already know a couple things it's going to bring, but we'll cover that in a later video. Peace.